Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he," meaning God, "will make your path straight." To me, this verse means, Nikki, don't think that you have it all figured out or can see everything that I, God, am doing in your life, everything that I am trying to bring about. Don't trust yourself more than you trust me, meaning God. I think God challenges me to yield my life to him and to see the amazing blessings he can bring into my life as a result of letting him call the shots. One time when both my husband and I had to really trust God beyond what we could see was when we began our journey to adopt our oldest daughter, Lilia. A few months after we decided to start pursuing this journey, we got a call from a friend of ours who, her and her husband were working with a young teenage mom-to-be actually, that was looking for a couple to adopt her baby. And she wanted to meet us and consider us as prospective adoptive parents for her child. Now, understandably, my husband and I were freaked out nervous about this meeting because so much was at stake. But we were also excited, thinking this might be our little baby that we're going to get to meet the birth mom of. Well, about a day or two after that meeting, our friends from Nebraska called us to see how that meeting had gone, and we said we thought it went really well. Well, then a few days later, we got a call from that friend of a friend who told us that the birth mom did not pick us. She picked a different couple to adopt her baby. And we felt devastated. We wondered, had we not been hearing God these past few months, and had he not been leading us, and was he not the one that opened that door for us? And we felt like the door had just gotten slammed in our face. So our friend, who is a pastor in the Omaha area, had a really good friend of their family, a young college student, come into his office that day facing an unplanned pregnancy. And she asked him, "Pastor Warren, will you please help me find a couple to adopt this baby?" After our initial rejection from the first birth mom we met with, we were super nervous about meeting this young gal, and we didn't even want to get our hopes up. But our friends Warren and Shelley assured us, they're like, "You can come to our house, we can stay at our house, we'll have the birth parents over and you can meet them, we'll cook out and just relax and it'll be fine." So that's what we did on Mother's Day weekend of 2004. We spent it with our friends in Omaha, meeting these two birth parents, and it seemed to go so well. But again, after our first experience of rejection, we didn't know how to think about it or even pray about it, and just decided we needed to leave it in God's hands. God's amazing, though, his timing. 6.5 months after that weekend, we got to hold our oldest daughter, Lilia, in our arms. And really one of the biggest gifts we've ever received. God used our first phone call to our friends and that meeting that didn't work with the birth mom to make us fresh in his mind when Lily's birth mom walked into his office. And God knew what was best, and we're so grateful for how he worked beyond what we could see. So maybe you're facing a situation in your life that you're struggling to trust him. I would just encourage you to trust him with all your heart. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight.
In my walk with Christ, I've had a lot of different questions pop in my mind. But in my last transition from my previous ministry to this one that was constant was, does God even exist? And maybe you've had the same time in your life that you've asked the same question. And the thing is, like, we're not alone. In the Bible, there's a disciple named Thomas. And after Jesus has been claimed to rise from the dead, Thomas goes, "I'm not going to believe that until I can actually see proof that Jesus is alive." In the Psalms, psalmists cry out to God and say, "God, where are you in my time of need? Are you even there? Do you even hear me? Are you listening? Do you exist?" And the thing is, if you were to tell me the first part of this verse, Proverbs 3, to trust in the Lord with all my heart, I'd be like, how can I trust in someone that right now I'm not even sure is real? But the second half of this verse, it says, "And lean not on your own understanding." You see, my understanding of who God is so small, and he's bigger than I can possibly comprehend. In Exodus, God is telling Moses that he wants him to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let his people go. And Moses goes, "Okay, if I go to your people and they ask me, 'Who sent you?' Who do I say that you are, God?" And God doesn't say, like, well, I'm the creator of the universe, so I'm going to show them all the things I've made. Or he's not going to say, well, I know your heart, so have them ask something and I'll tell you the answer and I'll shock them with all this proof that I exist. God just simply tells Moses, tell them, I am who I am. He doesn't give proof. He just says, trust that I am God. You see, because God is God and we are not. So in those moments of doubt, God says, trust in my character. And my character says that I'm never going to leave you. I'm never going to forsake you. I'm going to be with you. So in those moments that I doubt or that you doubt, let us lean not on our understanding of who we think God may or may not be, but trust that he is God and we are not. And trust in his character that says, I'm always with you and I will never leave you.
Some of the leaders in the room may know college is not cheap. But for those of you in the room that are not in college, which I would assume would be most of you, I'll tell you this, college is not cheap. For me, when I finally realized how expensive my college debt was going to be, I panicked. I knew that I was going to be about $30,000 in debt, and I had no idea where that money was going to come from. Not only did I not know where my money was going to come from to get me through everyday college life, but I wondered, how the heck am I going to pay off a 5-figure college debt? It was at this point that I asked, God, how am I going to do this? Now, this was my first mistake. I said, God, how am I going to do this? This is my first opportunity as a true Christian to truly rely on what Christ had for me. But I'm not going to lie to you, it was hard. I had just come into my faith, and I honestly didn't know how to trust God fully. I really didn't. 1 Timothy 6, verses 7 through 9 say, For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. God doesn't promise us excess of what we need, but he does promise us that he will provide what we need. So rather than agonize over something that I have no control over, I need to be content with the fact that God has a plan for my life. He may give me an awesome paying job where I can pay off that debt in 3 years, or he might give me an average job where I can pay that off in 10 years. But that doesn't really matter. I know that through Proverbs 3:5 that he has a plan for me, and I need to trust in what he has. So rather than focusing on the problems in my life, such as where's my money going to come from, why not rejoice in the fact of what he's already blessed me with? So I know that I will no longer lean on my own understanding, but instead I will trust in the Lord and what he has for me. So I would challenge you to do the same. Don't lean on your own understanding, because God has you in his hands, and he has a plan for you. So trust in that, and be content with it.
Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. This is a pretty simple verse, easy to remember. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. That's pretty simple. Okay, I can do that. Check. But wait, it's not that simple. Do we really do this in our own lives? I mean, think about it. Do we really trust in the Lord with all of our heart? As I was looking in the Bible this week and I was reading this verse over and over again, I really realized that we take this verse and we twist it around. So often we say, trust in ourselves with all of our heart and do not lean into God's understanding. So often that's what we're living our life by. This is what junior high was like for me. Sure, I went to church on Sundays, went to youth group on Wednesdays, but I was still on the fence of really trusting God with my whole heart. I wasn't quite ready to give my entire life over to Christ. I was still so consumed with myself, and just on a daily basis, I was just all about myself, always thinking about myself. I was trusting in myself with all my heart. It wasn't until I continued going to church and really spent time in community with other believers that I really got a sense of who Christ is and who God is and really what kind of God he is. I learned that he is a God that we can put our entire trust in. I learned that he is a God that we can just lean on with everything that we have, because he has a plan for every single one of us. So I'm telling you from experience, we do have a God that is like this, that we can trust with all of our heart, and we can just lean into with everything. I mean, he is a God that sent his one and only Son to earth for us to die an awful, terrible death just for our sins, so that someday we can spend eternity in heaven seated next to Christ. So I challenge you tonight, throughout the rest of the week, throughout the rest of your life, to trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding.